Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Cormorant Productions, here to talk about Cobra Kai, Season 3, Episode 2, Nature vs. Nurture. Before I show no mercy to this episode, I figured I would take this opportunity to clarify my intentions regarding the series. I plan on doing all 10 episodes of this series, regardless of whether anybody's watching or if I have an audience for it. After I concluded Season 3, whether I go back and do the other episodes depends on a couple of factors. 1, do I feel like doing it? And 2, do I have anybody watching me? For now, I don't actually care if I have an audience for these videos or not. I'm just doing this for the funsies. Though obviously, it would be nice if people were actually watching. If you like this video and my content in general, please feel free to hit me up with a subscribe. Now, just as a reminder, this is not a spoiler-free dojo. So if you have not yet watched this episode, I highly recommend that you go and do so, and then come back and watch my video. We open up in San Fernando Valley, 1965, to start exploring John Creese's origins. These scenes are sprinkled throughout the season and are meant to make us sympathize or at least understand John Creese. And honestly, I thought they did a better job with this last season than they do during this season. Still, they're plenty fine. They don't really justify John Creese becoming a maniac, but I sympathize nonetheless. We see the bully, played by Martin Coe's actual son, enter a diner where John Creese works. Young John Creese is played by Barrett Carnahan, who I know from nowhere, though there are a couple places that I could have seen him before, including the movie Super 8 and an episode of Bones. Creese ends up serving the bully, his friends, and his girlfriend Betsy. And the bully acts like a stereotypical butthole. An army recruiter tries to recruit the bully, and he is not that interested. He ends up throwing the brochure away. But who should pick it up but John Creese himself? I don't know anything about the army, but I do know that nothing is as glamorous as it appears on the brochure. We cut to present day with John Creese teaching his class. Weakness is unacceptable, he says. The fight at the school was an embarrassment. We lost soldiers and we lost the battle. But you will not lose again. Diaz was one of our own. What they did to him, they did to all of us. And it will not go unanswered. We will show no weakness. We will show no mercy. We will strike back, and we will strike hard. Is that clear? I said it in the last episode, but I hear Palpatine's voice every time the Creese speaks. And the usual Cobra Kai logo comes over the screen. And when we return, we are at the hospital. Miguel still has his little neck contraption on, and Carmen is presenting Miguel with a comic book from his pale friend, Dimitri. I was gonna say that comment is a little bit mean, but Dimitri is kinda pale. She points out a basket from the LaRussos, but what he really wants to know is where Sensei is. And the answer is, he's out with Daniel during their annual team-up episode, which the last couple of seasons has happened during. It's the typical comment that makes you love Johnny, but Johnny, sometimes quitting is a good thing. Their mutual friend turns out to be Johnny's ex-wife, and mother of Robby. After the usual bickering between two ex-lovers, she eventually says that Robby would probably be hanging with the two dimwits. Anytime that he would get into trouble, they would not be far behind. The two dimwits that we saw Robby rolling with last season. Or rather, 2 seasons ago. And Daniel knows just where to find them. Cut to John Creese at class. He tells them that they worked hard today, and that he would like to introduce them to a little friend. And it turns out to be a cute little mousie. Bert, not sensing the trap, is all like, "Aw, what's his name?" And Creese says, "What do you think its name should be?" And Bert suggests Clarence. "Aw, Clarence!" He offers it to Bert, and Bert takes it, still not sensing the fact that this is a very obvious trap. That will get him into trouble later in the season as well. But we'll get there. Creese says, "You know, it's almost lunchtime." And Bert says, "Ooh, can I feed him?" "Oh, Bert, you were going to be so heartbroken." Creese says, "No, but you can feed him." And Creese pulls back a black to reveal a reptilian creature of some type. Perhaps a cobra? And Bert looks all fearful. "Oh, well, what does the snake like to eat?" And Creese says, "He likes to eat Clarence." With encouragement from Creese, Bert steps forward, but he finds that he can't drop the mousie in the cage. And Creese says, "You object. It's okay. He's our friend. It's okay to object. Anybody else?" And a bunch of people raise their hands. "You're off the team. Get out!" Bert is all, "But..." And Creese says, "I said get out!" And then, laughing manically, Creese throws the mouse in with the snake. Okay, he didn't actually laugh manically, but damned if it would be funny if he did. A little bit later, Creese is preparing his cigar when Hawk enters the room. Hawk, the de facto leader, now that Miguel is no longer a part of Cobra Kai. Creese looks at him and asks, "Are you sad to see your little friends go?" "No, Sensei," Hawk says. And Creese suggests that he can speak freely. Hawk doesn't think that now is the right time to make cuts, because they lost students in the school fight. And Creese says that this is addition by subtraction. A true cobra feels no sympathy for its meals. Well, it's not like Bert was gonna eat the mouse himself. Hawk looks uncomfortable, but says nothing. And Creese asks, "Do you have a problem with that?" And if you answer yes, you're probably getting kicked off Cobra Kai. But, you do you, Hawk. Hawk wisely decides to say no, Sensei. But he doesn't understand the plan. With Miyagi-Do shut down, now is the time to get some new recruits. And Creese says they will, but for now, they need to strengthen their core. With Diaz out, they're gonna need a new champion. Someone with no fear and no mercy. That seems to satisfy Hawk. And then we cut to Tory. Tory being the one who started the fight last season. She's showing no mercy to a sandwich. She's apparently caretaking for her mother, who is very ill. She approaches the landlord to complain about a leak, and he simply says, "You haven't paid rent," and pretty much tells her that she, and her family will get kicked out if she doesn't get caught up soon, and doesn't seem to care about her sick mother, and of course brings up the fight and the fact that her mother is the only reason she's not in juvie. He goes on to imply that he'll let the little thing like not paying rent go in exchange for sexual favors. Somehow I'm thinking, I'm not supposed to like this guy very much. Cut to the prison. Daniel and Johnny are talking to Robby's friends, and I say friends in air quotes. Johnny tries to be all intimidating, which they just laugh off, and then Daniel tries it, and it seems to work, much to Johnny's annoyance. This most likely has to do with the fact that Daniel kicked both of their butts last season. Eventually, after being slapped around a little bit by Johnny, they give him a general idea of where Robby could be. Cut to the hospital with Miguel and Carmen being checked out by a doctor who's asking him if he can feel various things like his hands, which he can, and his feet, which he can't. Miguel asks if he's going to be able to do karate again, which, oh boy. The doctor says 1 day at a time, and then asks to speak to Carmen. Probably to tell her that not only is he probably not going to be doing karate anytime soon, but there's a good chance that he's never going to walk again. We don't see this conversation, but we do see Carmen crying, and that's enough to give us an idea of exactly what is being said. Cut to Daniel and Johnny. Johnny is eating corn nuts and annoying the crap out of Daniel, who tells him to be careful, please, because he doesn't want to be finding those in the upholstery 5 years from now. Johnny demonstrates pretty thoroughly that he doesn't care. Daniel says that they are going to have to talk about what happens when they find Robby. And Johnny says, he's my son, and I'll talk to him. Daniel says under his breath, but not so under his breath that Johnny doesn't hear it, that's always gone well. Amanda calls, and she is surprised that Johnny is with Danielle. And Johnny further demonstrates that he doesn't understand technology at all. Daniel tells his wife that they have a lead on Robby. Amanda's like, a lead? What are you guys, Tango and Cash? And Johnny replies, no, Tango and Cash were narcotics detectives. Amanda, with a slightly sarcastic edge, apologizes for the mistake. During this conversation, Johnny lets loose the fact that they were at the prison knocking around some inmates, which is not something that thrills Amanda too much. And neither is Daniel all that thrilled for her to be hearing it. He tries to get it to tone it down a little bit. Amanda, even more sarcastically now, tells him, you do realize that neither one of you guys are cops, right? After the phone conversation is over, Johnny says that he was not about to lie to Daniel's wife for him. Cut to Tory, who is getting a visit from John Creese. Creese wants her to come back to the dojo, and Tory says that she would love to, but she can't, because she's in a less than stellar situation. She tells him that she doesn't have money for rent, never mind karate. And from the sounds of things, Creese seems to suggest that the karate will be free. At least that's my take on what he says. And he eventually picks up on the vibes he's getting from Tory directed at the landlord, who is just behind her, or rather Creese. He may be crazy. He may be homicidal. He may be a maniac. But he is no dummy. Cut to John Creese's past, where I guess he's at home, or maybe he's out back from his job. But either way, he sees the bully strike Betsy, and he comes to her defense. And of course, this leads to a fight. It's pretty clear from the scene that Creese already knows some karate. Before finally winning the fight, he says, "I've been fighting my entire life, so I'm sure as shit not afraid of you." And that is how he won Betsy's heart. Cut back to the present day timeline. It's starting to feel like I'm doing This Is Us videos again. But anyway, Johnny and Daniel are at a gas station. Daniel is making fun of or expressing surprise that Johnny would eat gas station food. And you know what, Daniel? I'm feeling a little attacked here. During this conversation, Daniel checks his phone. And he expresses happiness because Miguel woke up. And he says, at least that's one bit of good news. And Johnny has a little bit of a complicated expression on his face. Johnny finishes pumping the gas when Daniel notices the Dodge Caravan with the LaRusso plates driving by. High-speed chase ensues with Johnny at the wheel, which results in a broken mirror, and Johnny saying, you got insurance. The suspect, which is not Robby, by the way, he is not in the vehicle, stops the car and runs into a really sketchy-looking place with a bunch of cars in it. And Johnny says, "Look alive, we have to pursue on foot." And Daniel is pretty much nah, we're done, we're not doing this is crazy. But of course, Johnny goes on in. And once inside, Daniel makes the less than brilliant decision to announce that they should call the cops. And Johnny says that he is in his element, he knows what he's doing, and that he isn't afraid. And Daniel insists that he himself is also not afraid. Daniel says, "You know what? Forget it. You're on your own," and tries to take off. But a big guy says, "Leaving already?" And Daniel says, "You know what? I don't care about the vehicle. You can keep that. We just want to know where the kid is, and then we'll be on our way." And the guy is all like, "On your way to call the cops, right? Like you said." And then two other guys converge on them. No, cops," Daniel says. "We can work this out." "Or not," Johnny says, and then shoves Daniel out of the way to start the fight. And together, they kick some ass. Eventually, down to the guy they were chasing in the first place, and Johnny just starts pummeling on him. Daniel tries to pull him off, saying it's too much, and that he's going to end up killing him. And then Daniel and Johnny end up fighting each other somehow. And something very interesting that I've noted in this series is the fact that Daniel and Johnny always almost end up fighting to a standstill, to a draw. Neither one of them ever really wins. Eventually, Johnny is like, "What's the matter with you?" "What's the matter with me?" Daniel says in anger. "What, are you trying to kill that guy?" "He knew where Robby was," Johnny says. And Daniel says, "He told you everything he knew." God, I should have known better than to team up with a lunatic like you. Johnny leaves the building, or rather Daniel does, and then Johnny chases after him. "Hey, you're the one who called me," Johnny says. "Don't do it again." "Oh, don't worry. I won't." "I know you are, but what am I?" You know, the two of these guys together is like watching a couple of 12-year-olds. Something about them being in the same room seems to regress the both of them, even more so than they already are. Daniel actually says, "Oh, don't worry, I won't. I can't believe that you actually taught kids." Johnny fires back, "Oh yeah, you're some great teacher. Look at what happened to Robby." And Daniel fires back, "Yeah, maybe he had a little bit too much of you in him." And it's funny because Johnny just takes that. He says nothing back in response to that. He just looks down, ashamed. There is a big part of Johnny that really doesn't think very much of himself. And you can see the look on Daniel's face. He regrets what he said to Johnny almost immediately. He knows the words, how they impacted him. Johnny decides to take off in the Dodge Caravan. Where he's going, we don't quite know yet. But it's clear that he's giving up on the search for Robby. Just like that. You know, I'm not overall thrilled with the arc that Robby took this season, as far as the character is concerned. But he legitimately has a pretty decent gripe against his father. He gives up the search for his actual son to go and visit his surrogate son. He drives away, peeling out, and Daniel calls after him that he better return that car to the dealership. Yep, I'm sure that's going to happen. This isn't going to be a running joke through the rest of the season. Not at all. After Johnny leaves, Daniel gets a call. And if you just waited around for, 2 more minutes, you too could have gone and seen your son. Cut to Creese, who was going to have a little conversation with Tory's landlord. The landlord is impressed, or rather not impressed, until Creese gets him trapped by the fingers in that thing that he was using to cut his cigars with earlier. This makes the impression that Creese is looking for, and he ends up taking care of Tory's little problem. Cut to Miguel in the hospital, trying to eat the hospital food, when in comes Johnny for the reunion that we've been looking forward to. Johnny tells him that he keeps having to sneak in. Miguel asks him what happened to his face, and Johnny says that he got into a fight with a paper towel dispenser. It's not really clear to me who won that fight, by the way. You got rid of that neck brace thing, that's good. Yeah, that is a good sign. Miguel tells him that the doctor told his mom that he might not walk again. An array of emotions come across his face, and damn it, man, is William Sabaka an underrated actor? He quietly says, "What? No. He can't know that. They don't know how strong you are." Miguel looks emotional when he says, "Sensei, I did what you taught me. I showed mercy. Why did this happen to me?" Johnny doesn't have any answers. He tells him that he doesn't know. And here's the thing about life. You can do all the right things, and things can still go wrong. There are no guarantees. Miguel, in tears, tells him, "You don't know. I trusted you. I did everything that you told me." Johnny tries to say something, but what could he possibly say at this moment? Miguel says, "Look at me," in anger and through tears. Johnny is looking like he's struggling really hard to rein in his own emotions. Miguel quietly tells him to get out of there. And Johnny is probably trying to say, "Miguel, you can't give up." But Miguel, this time much, much louder, says, "Get out of here." And Johnny reluctantly, and with a pained expression, does so. Fantastic scene, fantastically acted by both actors. And I'm glad they didn't immediately reconcile the relationship here, because that wouldn't have been realistic. This is realistic. The anger, the anguish, everything about this just feels real to me. And that's the funny thing about this show. We'll have moments like this, which are very true to life, and then some over-the-top, completely crazy scenes that would not happen in real life at all. It's an interesting mix of drama and just complete over-the-topness. But it makes for a fun series. Cut to Robby, who is with his mother at the rehab facility. His mother is trying to reassure him that they'll figure things out. And that's when Daniel happens upon the scene. His mother takes off, leaving Daniel and Robby to talk. Daniel compliments Robby on his new haircut. And Robby says that he's sorry that he's stuck cleaning up his mess, and insists that he's going to pay him back for the van. Which, it'd be nice if he did that, because his father's going to be driving it around for the rest of the season. Robby asks if Sam is okay. Doesn't ask about Miguel, but asks about Sam. And that's something that really bugs me this season about his character. His lack of expression for the fact that he kicked somebody off a railing and nearly killed him. There's a little bit of guilt that's expressed in the scene about that. It's subtle, but it's there. But for the rest of the season, we don't see that from him very much at all, except in tiny little glimmers. Maybe that's a good thing, make it subtle, but I would have liked to have seen some acknowledgement of what he did, which is that he nearly killed somebody. And there's one scene in particular that particularly galls me later in the season. But we'll get there. Daniel tells him that Sam is worried, that they all are, his dad included. Well, isn't that magnanimous of you, Daniel, to include his father in that? Daniel says that he needs to apologize to him. And Robby says that he's the one that caused all this. That he's the one that kicked Miguel. And he doesn't get to finish that sentence because Daniel interrupts him. So that's the one little moment that we get an acknowledgement of what he did. And maybe that's enough. Maybe I'm just wrong here. And while we're here, I think this is the time to talk about the actor, Tanner Buchanan, who plays Robby. I'm not completely sold on him as Robby. He seems to be a decent enough actor, but he doesn't ever come off as anything other than a nice guy. He doesn't really pull off the troubled and the darker part of Robby's character. He's never really convincing there. When he expresses anger, it comes off as very forced. Now, he seems to be a decent performer all in all. He's just way too pretty boyish for this role, and soft-spoken, and I just don't buy him when he's playing out the seedier parts of his character. Daniel starts to try to convince him to turn himself in, that he got a lawyer, and that's when the cops show up, which Daniel clearly called before coming here. And that was a mistake. That was a tactical error on Daniel's part. If he thought he could convince Robby to turn himself in so that they didn't throw the book at him like they said they were going to do, if he didn't, if he was caught as a fugitive, then talk him into it and then bring him there yourself. Don't call the cops and risk them interrupting the conversation, which is exactly what ended up happening. And this pretty much ends up torching his relationship with Daniel for the rest of the season, possibly for the rest of the series. True, Robby is not exactly thinking long term here. There's no way that he can make being a fugitive a long time thing. But nevertheless, I feel like Daniel handled this wrong. Cut to a brief scene where Tory re-enters the dojo and tells Creese that the issue she was having, she's no longer having. And Creese is shocked, I say, shocked. He had nothing to do with that, and I'm kind of curious if Tory knows his involvement or not. And then we cut to the past, where Creese is saying goodbye to Betsy because he's going off to join the army. He promises that he will be coming back. We cut back to the dojo. Creese says, "Your whole lives, you've been told to be good. But good is only a matter of perspective. Always remember that your enemies think that they are doing what's right. They think that they are the hero and that you are the villain. But now you know the truth. There is no good, there is no bad, only weak or strong. And now that we shed our weakness, it's time that we show our strength. If you do that, I promise you that you will be unstoppable." End of the episode. A fantastic episode. A lot of fun. The Daniel and Johnny team up was fun as usual. I was a little bummed at the end of the episode, or well before that, when it became clear that the two of them were not teaming up now to take down Creese. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that William Sabaka and Xolo Mordueno are just magic together. Miguel and Johnny's scenes are just pure magic. Their one scene together was fantastic and well acted. And I can't wait to talk about the rest of the season. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can join my Facebook group, Corman Productions. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can buy something from the Corman Productions store on Zazzle. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video. And you can subscribe to my channel. This is Dave from Corman Productions, signing off.